The Out of Bounds Show podcast is powered by the DeWalt tools at Ace Bolt and Screw. Visit acebolt.net for a location near you.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
Is now awarded.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bulldogs. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
Oh, good morning. Woo! Here we go. Back in the Bank Plus studio. After a week and a half. Is that how long it was? Yeah, about a week and a half out of the of Jackson in the Bank Plus studio. Welcome in. Good morning on a Tuesday. Hope you had a wonderful, wonderful Memorial Day weekend. We did. And, Blake Mania showed up today. Who knew? Who knew? You never know. He's here. We're here. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS. We are the Out of Bounds Show, powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook, the only sportsbook to give you college baseball odds, and also award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Visit dancingrabbitgolf.com to schedule a tee time or start the process on your next buddy's trip. You can hit the golf course, the sports book, and Philip M's. Several different ways that you can get in touch with us or listen to the show. One is we're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Would love for you to download that. You can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line. We'll go back to the regular number, 601-707-3750. Twitter handle at BowBounds, brought to you by Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools. And then the text line, 601-885-3776, brought to you by Mississippi Ag and driven by your next John Deere tractor to manage your land. Welcome in, welcome in. Good morning. Feels like a Monday, it's a Tuesday. Feels like a Monday, it's a Tuesday. All right. We'll have we'll have John Cohen stop by at 7:35, and athletic director at Mississippi State. And, of course, we'll start with conspiracy theories with Coach Cohen and then work back from there. Mike Detillier at 8:30 and Tom Luganbill at 9:30. So a little bit different lineup, just coming in on a Tuesday. Heavy football, obviously, at 8:30 and 9:30. Although Detillier was the first person on our show a while back to tell us that Coach Paul Mainieri would retire, and that Mainieri and LSU would go their separate ways. Mainieri had a hell of a run, won a title, and lived in the postseason, deep into the postseason. And as y'all know, he was at Notre Dame for years. And he's from a famous coach down in the Miami-Dade area. Bertman, Ron Polk. I mean, that whatever was in the water down there was pretty serious, right? And has been for decades. But Coach Mainieri will retire, and then we'll see if LSU wants Vitello, and then who else is in play? The Michigan coach, Schlossnagle maybe. O'Sullivan's not leaving Florida. We'll see. Kind of see what shakes out there. But Detillier dropped that on us, I guess, 2 months ago. And we'll hit that again, just kind of get his I hear they're going to, offer $1.8 million, and they're not going to mess around. And Vitello is an interesting story. I'll get to that in just a second. Tom Luganbill will drop by at 9:30. Before we know it, it'll be SEC Media Days. But today is the first day for a lot of Ole Miss and Mississippi State players to, hit the weight room and summer workouts and high school too. They get back into it after a week or so off. But that's something to think about. Weight rooms across the country: Clemson, Bama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, A&M. Most of them are already done or well into their workout. So there you go. as you're scrambling around trying to figure out where your boxers are. They're about an hour and 15 minutes into their Power 5 SEC workout, if you will.
What?
Yeah, I know. That's what. Anyway, I had a great time at the beach. Blake, it was 80 degrees and with a breeze the whole time.
By the way, I'm a fan.
I'm a fan of the beach, and I'm a fan of sports.
That was a good week for you.
Well, so as you get older, I'm not as mad at it to run out there when it's 115 degrees. I get that people have to schedule, just depending on what you got going on with your work, life, kids, whatever. But going down there, first of all, I've only got, I've got a junior and senior now in high school. So I've only got a couple more years where I have to schedule around them. And then I will be going in May before the Memorial Day crazy, which was so much fun. It was great to be there the week before Memorial Day. But the weather was we didn't have one drop of rain.
Yeah, and you got lucky. You caught a cold front that really, I mean, all of Mississippi was cool over the last couple of days. But, I mean, even at the beach especially, obviously, was like, I was down in Bay St. Louis in the coast for a little while at the end of the week. And so, got to catch a little bit of that same weather. It was quite fantastic.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then you orchestrated the largest coup in college baseball history. And so
I did.
From the beach. The reach knows no bounds.
Yeah. From the beach through John Cohen.
That's right. That's right. Pulling the puppet strings. Look at you go.
It's incredible. But yeah, we had great food too. They do a market at Seaside where you can buy different things. And
like fresh fish and stuff?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
cool.
these guys run a top-notch
That's awesome.
deal. Well, they had a bunch of grouper, red snapper, and tuna.
Ooh.
So I gobbled up some tuna and some grouper, and we cooked it at the condo thing. And
That sounds good.
it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It really was. And then 3 restaurants killed it. 4. Barago was amazing. The bolognese is the scallops, all that. That's great. Wine World is just, it's going to be solid. You know what I'm saying? Fish Out of Water was actually really good. And then Surfing Deer was excellent. And then we had a ton of boar's head deli meat in the refrigerator. And that's what we did for lunch. Other than one day I did Bud and Alley's by myself. Wendy's not going to leave the beach, which I don't blame her when it's pretty. But I have to roam around a little bit.
I can't sit on the beach all day. It's just
I can if I did good. I had a book. Well, I had 2, and because it was in the 80s and I never broke a sweat, I could sit under the umbrella and kind of chill. So that was nice. True Maroon's up early.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. How exciting is it that both Mississippi State and Ole Miss will host regionals this weekend? How cool is it, Blake, that the towns will be packed and our wonderful Mississippi people will make tons of money. And hotel rooms will be packed and restaurants will be packed and retail and all this kind of good stuff. So that is very, very exciting. Mississippi State grabbed a national seed. They had already locked that up. We told you that on the show. They did not play well. This is an understatement. Yeah. They did not play well in Hoover. And they, in fact, did they play poorly? Yes. Did they look like they didn't care? Yes. Did they embarrass themselves? Yes. However, when you win 20 games and your RPI is at number 7, you're in. You're in. They were in the whole time. And they deserve to be in. I mean, I'm sorry. We have been talking about the SEC tournament, and while it's a cool deal, it sometimes it means something for a team trying to get in or something like that. But once you've won 20 games and you're a top 8 RPI, you have a top 8 RPI, you're in. You're a national seed. And the two both drew tough regionals because most everybody can play. And now we get to roll the ball out and see what happens. Kudos to Ole Miss for playing well, though. They are the club that is playing right now better. out of the two teams. They looked really good, played well in Hoover. Tip of the cap to them. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The show is brought to you by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Good morning. Welcome in. Big Board. Coming up next.
It is not super hard to get to Omaha.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Boar's Head. Premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Boar's Head. Compromise elsewhere.
On the big board. What's on the big board?
Good morning. Welcome in, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. This is the big board on a Tuesday. Coming out of Memorial Day weekend. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for making us your sports and entertainment show of choice in the great state of Mississippi. Exciting time. Hail State baseball with the national seed coming in at number 7. So they'll host a regional. If they win it, they'll host a super. Ole Miss will host a regional. They were the 12th seed. Yeah. And, I mean, that's impressive by both programs.
Hosting Southern Miss in Oxford, by the way.
Southern Miss to the top was within one game of hosting.
Yeah.
La Tech and Lane Burroughs. Burroughs?
Correct.
Will be hosting, which is a great story considering the 2019 tornado hit Ruston, and look at what they've been able to do. Kudos to Lane and his team, staff and team. But there was a lot of back and forth on regional
difficulty.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden people looked at the RPI of the teams in the two regionals, and if you look at the RPI, which is what the committee went, I mean, it was obvious. It was all about RPI, right?
Especially with weird schedules this year.
Right. And when you look at it, Mississippi State's 3 teams have a better RPI combined. Average, right? Composite.
Stop that.
Well, I didn't do this. I'm just going by what the nerds put together as far as the RPI. But Mississippi State's RPI is better, regional RPI is better than Ole Miss's. That's not me, that's not Blake, that's not Lamonis, that's just, kind of what the deal is. So, something to think about as we, they're both tough, by the way. But holy smokes, there was a lot of craziness yesterday when everything was announced. Exciting, though, that the Rebs and the Dogs will host this weekend. Now, both regionals everything starts on Friday. And then if you kind of look at the rain in the forecast, bottom line is you got to play. I mean, the Supers are next and the CWS is next. So they got to figure out a way to jam these games in, Blake, because you're looking at 50% chance of rain, give or take.
Yeah, and from now until Friday, it'll be the hotly debated question in both camps. Who do you pitch? Do you start your ace against the 4 seed, or do you start your Sunday pitcher against the 4 seed and then go Friday, Saturday in hopes that you can go 3-0 and make it to a super regional?
Either way, playing with fire?
You either shoot your load too early or you hold it and never get it when it matters, right?
Okay.
It's either way, and you're in trouble either way if it doesn't play your way.
Yeah, well,
because coaching is all hindsight. Coaching is always smart.
Does Mississippi
right?
State have an ace?
Will
Miss does.
Bednar. Will Bednar is Mississippi State's ace.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay.
He's had the most consistently solid outings.
Because Nikhazy is an ace.
Correct.
And probably the best starting pitcher in the country. He is absolutely, his numbers are almost not human.
He's right up there. If you're picking starting pitchers for a rotation, he's right up there, 100%. He's been electric, and that's the question. Do you feel like he's a waste if you pitch him on Friday?
Well, you have to be careful with these mid-major teams.
You're right.
They have proven time and time again that they can beat a major in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a regional or super.
I'm with you. 100% with you.
Now, Lamonis made a good point that, a lot of these teams, because of COVID, their players didn't go anywhere, and they are super old, loaded with juniors and seniors. And that's something to think about, too. And I will say this with home field advantage at the Dude in Swayze. There have been times where it has worked against Mississippi State and Ole Miss.
Pressure?
Because of the pressure that is put on the teams. And Mississippi State's had a ton of success on the road. Cohen and Lamona. No, that was Henderson/Gotro, right?
In 18?
With Vanderbilt?
Yes.
Yeah, going on the road to win the Florida State Regional and the Vanderbilt Super Regional. And in 2013, when Mississippi State played for the national title, they went on the road to UVA.
Yeah.
And UVA
national seed
is a monster.
They were a national seed that year. Yeah.
And so they had to go to Charlottesville.
Yep.
And win it to go to Omaha. Something that people forget. So while you want home field advantage, sometimes it works against you. Maybe it did in 84. Maybe it did in 89 for Mississippi State. Maybe it did in 04 and 05 for Ole Miss. There was too much. It was, it was so sudden and happened so fast for Ole Miss to find themselves on the big stage of college baseball.
Yeah.
And, I mean, look, those Stephen Head teams were and Holloman and all those guys were loaded. But was it 04, 5, and 6 back to back against Texas, Miami, and UVA or something like that they lost super regionals at home, and the program had never experienced a packed Swayze at that level, in that weekend, in that moment. Everything's on the line.
27 outs is a lot to get.
It is. and it didn't really phase Texas, Miami, and UVA. They just kind of came in and fed off the crowd and won. Mississippi State in 03, they threw Mahalam against who? Like Middle Tennessee or something? And ended up losing that regional. Mahalam as a junior and had a pretty stacked. Pat McMahon had left Ron Polk a stacked team. And they lost the North Carolina regional. So, and then the flip side is the two teams have punched their ticket in Starkville and Oxford several times over the years, right?
Yeah.
So, it's you'd still rather be at home, right? All things considered, you'd still rather be at home.
Yeah, and so Mississippi State paired up with Notre Dame. So should Mississippi State win their regional, they would stay at home against the winner of the Notre Dame regional. Ole Miss would go to Arizona if both top seeds win. If
Arizona loses, Ole Miss
would host in a super regional.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we've seen that before. Mississippi State Clemson.
That's right.
Was
07.
Yeah, State got the benefit of a crazy regional play and ended up hosting as a 2 seed, I think.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky. Hey, if the 105.9 The Zone ESPN signal is a little weird today, you can stream the show. It's crystal clear. Just the Out of Bounds radio app, download it. It takes about 5 seconds, and you can stream the show. So the stream is perfect, and that is the Out of Bounds radio app. Download it, and you will love it. What would you do, Blake? Would you throw your aces, or would you hold Nikhazy and are you holding McLeod or Bednar?
Well, Bednar's always.
If you're going with Cade Smith.
If you are going with a non-ace, if you're Mississippi State, then I think you're going whoever you start Friday, and then you're still going McLeod Bednar next 2 days. I think you keep that order. So you may not
even if things go way the wrong way, you may not even get to Bednar.
Well, okay, yeah. If you went 0-2, that's correct. You would not have Will Bednar pitch. That is accurate.
Do you know the absolute freak out that would go down within the fan base?
Correct.
All right.
On the other side of things, if you're Ole Miss, and this is true, I haven't done like a deep dive, but Southeast Missouri's starting pitcher, their number one ace, is something like 9-1 with a sub-2 ERA. So he's either filthy or...
Is that good?
Yeah. So what if you throw someone else out there and all of a sudden you look up and you're in a 1-0 ball game in the 8th, and Yeah, it goes both ways, both schools.
Does it look to you like Ole Miss is the better team right now?
They're playing better. The results speak for themselves. They have played better over the last 3 weeks than Mississippi State. It is what it is.
All right. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent in any of the 82 counties. Favorites.com, Farm Bureau Insurance. SEC Insider Hit coming up next. John Cohen, 7:35 on the Modelo guest line.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is powered by Breezy Oaks Ranch. For Mississippi-raised premium Wagyu beef and heritage pork shipped straight to your door, visit breezyoaksranch.com.
Let's do it.
This is the SEC Insider Hit. And it's presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue.
Man, I did not realize that this discussion would light up the Mississippi Ag text line. 601-885-3776, brought to you by Mississippi Ag. Your next John Deere tractor to manage your land, farm. 2 locations, Pearl and North Gluckstadt. Or Canton. It's Canton. Canton. Okay. 14 other locations outside of that. Mississippi Ag. Your next John Deere tractor. Welcome in, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We'll have John Cohen here in a couple of minutes. He was on the selection committee. Is that right, Blake? I'm sure it's some
Close
other.
enough.
Okay, whatever. He can say it officially if he wants. John Cohen will join us on the Modelo guest line in a few minutes, AD at MSU. And but this discussion on whether to throw Nikhazy is a bona fide ace. Mississippi State's best pitcher has been their second pitcher throughout the year, so that's a little weird. And both of them have had some ups and downs. I mean, they're good, but Bednar and McLeod haven't been Nikhazy like. You know, to throw or hold Nikhazy is one heck of a discussion all week against Southeast Missouri State, Blake.
That's correct.
And Mississippi State will play Samford.
That's correct. And right now,
they're the Bulldogs.
That's correct.
Okay, and they're in Birmingham.
Mississippi State got outed. I think it was Chris Stratton's ball club was outed on the road in a regional at Samford by a team. I think that Samford team in the mid-2000s was the NCAA leader in home runs that year. They were just smashing. I mean, I think we gave up like 13 home runs in 3 games or something like that. It was incredible.
Really?
Yeah, it was incredible. I remember that distinctly. All they did was hit bombs. That was back when the baseballs were different. And
okay.
But yeah, they'll. I believe Mississippi State has already announced they will play at 2:00 on Friday, and from what I can see, Ole Miss will play the nightcap. So it'll be different approaches as well.
Different approaches from Lamonis and Bianca, and but the expectations are high. Our listeners think one thing: we should punch our ticket through the regional and be in a super, and it will not be that easy. Again, these mid-major teams are older. And they had all their dudes stay, and so probably really, really heavy seniors and heavy juniors. So and I think more importantly, a lot of 22 and 23-year-olds on the roster, and there's something to that.
Is it safe to say super regionals are expected at this point? Like, I don't think either fan base is sitting here going, "We're going to struggle to get through this regional." They're both expecting to play in a super regional. And then that's the whole different question, whether they make it to Omaha.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State's matched up with Notre Dame, and Ole Miss is matched up with Arizona. So
could be a trip out west.
Now, I do want to let you know that real quick, before we go into Cohen and more baseball, because Blake brought up a couple of topics. We are going to hit football at 8:30 and 9:30 today. But the article that we were telling you about by Jeff Duncan, who we had in studio a couple of weeks ago, and Duncan wrote the book, Peyton and Breeze, right? And he also He's a Saints insider, was with the Times-Picayune forever, now with The Athletic. He just dropped the article on Arch Manning. The courting of Arch Manning. And then the quote, "I'm wide, wide open." It is a fantastic piece on what will be the recruitment of Arch Manning, Cooper Manning's son, Archie Manning's grandson, and nephew to some guys named Peyton and Eli.
Be the biggest recruitment in college football history, and it'll be hard to see if there's another one anywhere close.
And it'll be the biggest one since Marcus Dupree out of Philadelphia, Mississippi, but totally different time, early 80s, and so on. One thing Cooper in this article asked Nelson Stewart, Arch's coach, to make it like a 1970s recruitment, which I thought was interesting. We'll discuss that a little bit later in the show. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. In any of the 82 counties in Mississippi, you can also hop on favorites.com and get a quote in 4 minutes or less. Go local, go with the home team, Farm Bureau Insurance. We welcome in John Cohen, athletic director at Mississippi State. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. John, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. How you doing?
Well, we're doing great. What was it like? What was the process like, and what was it like for you to be on the NCAA selection committee these last few weeks and over the weekend with your team in, and then other SEC teams that you have relationships with that were either trying to get in or whatnot, John?
Well, it's a difficult task. You have a 10-person committee who takes it extremely seriously, as they should. They don't take anything for granted, and there's a ton of information that we go through. I think it's pretty organized. It's a very difficult task. And what I will tell you is, Bo, it's really difficult in the COVID environment, especially when you have leagues that are playing not a full complement of non-conference games, because those are the data points that really provide connectivity in college athletics, is comparing apples to apples when you can go across conference lines and compete. And the fact that we didn't have as much of that, in my opinion, it made the evaluation much more difficult.
And so y'all had, you lived this. You had to factor in some of these teams didn't have to throw guys on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and that's a big deal once you go into the weekend, right? Because you could have to – you don't ever know when a mid-major comes in and they're playing really well, and you've got to you're still trying to grind out a win on Tuesday or Wednesday, and you've got to burn some arms, whereas some teams didn't have to do that because of their scheduling, right?
Right, and you in your mind, there's this question that I was asking myself, right? There are certain teams in the field that didn't play the full complement of non-conference, didn't play midweek, played less conference games, but you have to ask yourself, is that their fault? It's certainly not the student athlete's fault, and let's be real honest here, Bo. That's what this is all about, is the opportunities for the student athlete. It's not a student athlete's fault if they're not playing in the midweek or not playing non-conference games. Those kids are competing their hearts out, and you only get a 4 or 5 year window to be able to do this. So you don't want to discount that. You don't want to take away any opportunities. But when you're sitting in the room, you're looking for data, and where data doesn't exist, it makes it more difficult to evaluate. So I think it was a factor. Was it the factor in the room for several schools? No, but it's certainly a factor. And it's just it just wasn't perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but in a COVID year, it's really not going to be perfect.
John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show. What were some of the most difficult decisions as far as teams hosting or not hosting for y'all?
Yeah, RPI was used in those decisions. Again, when you could compare apples to apples. When you can't compare apples to apples, it makes life a lot more interesting, a lot more difficult when you're making really tough decisions. And nobody in that room takes it lightly. Everybody in that room knows that These are people, we're making decisions that are affecting people who have dedicated a large portion of their life to college baseball. So, again, really serious discussion. And was it perfect? Absolutely not. But I think the committee did a nice job. Listen, if I could redo the whole bracket personally, would it be different? Absolutely it would, because everybody has a different opinion. And that's
sure
the great thing about putting really sharp people in the same room together. I feel like I learned a lot from the group. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think I contributed some, but the other thing too, Bo, is when there's anything that affects your team that you represent. So obviously I represent Mississippi State. Any type of discussion that could involve Mississippi State, you're out of the room. And I think that's a very important factor. And I think that's something that is really needs to happen, because when you're not in the room, you can't affect who you might play in the future and who you're going to play in the first round. So, but enjoyable experience, but certainly in a COVID year, much more difficult.
John Cohen, Athletic Director, MSU. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show. You can stream the show on the Out of Bounds radio app. John, let's switch gears. As someone who has been in the dugout and had to make these decisions, the big debate coming right out of the show this morning for State and Ole Miss fans is, do you throw your ace on Friday? And so, you hear McLeod or Bednar or whatever, and then you hear Nikhazy. Ole Miss has a more clear-cut ace, but obviously McLeod and Bednar are talented. As someone who has been there and done that, what are the factors? What do you weigh going into this? Because, man, this could set you up for a good weekend, or it could put you behind the eight ball.
Well, in a 4-game regional, the first game is critical. I mean, there's no question. I thought, Bo, originally you were going to ask me about playing first or playing second, as the host. So, but I will tell you, you got to look at the makeup of the team you're playing. So how right-handed is Samford? And I have not looked at their lineup a ton. I haven't done any scouting report stuff. Obviously, our baseball guys take care of that. But if Samford is really right-handed, that's going to alter who I'm going to pitch against them. And then you have all the crossover numbers, right versus left. What are the wind conditions going to be? Some of our starting guys are a little more fly ball oriented. Some of our starting guys are more ground ball oriented. If you can, kind of look into the crystal ball and see the direction of the wind on Friday, there's a ton of factors that go into this. And I have no doubt that Lem and Fox will make a really good decision, the best decision they can for Mississippi State.
Well,
but we're playing a really good Samford club here. They can flat out hit. They hit a ton of home runs in their conference tournament.
Okay, in your time at Florida, Kentucky, and Mississippi State, did you ever, or y'all collect, however that, did you ever hold your ace going into a regional first game?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, again, even if you have a clear-cut ace, you might feel like somebody is just a better matchup against that team. If you're going to see 6 or 7 left-handers in a lineup and your left-hander's a number 2 and he's been able to chew up left-handers and the numbers say that, this particular team doesn't hit left-handers as well, yeah. I mean, I think that matters. Again, fly ball, ground ball matters. So, yeah, if all that tells you we're going to throw our number 2 or number 3 on Friday. But the other thing, too, is how good your first-round opponent is. There are a couple of teams on the board that didn't have great years who got in because it got hot for one weekend in a tournament. If you feel like you're that far superior, then, yes, saving your guy for later on is, might be the way to go. But I can assure you this. Our staff has been looking at this over and over and over and over again, and they'll make the right decision. I'm very confident in that.
Okay, you mentioned the time slots. John Cohen joining us on the Out of Bounds show. Hail State's a national seed. So they're the number 7 seed. They're a national seed. They'll play at home this weekend. If they win this weekend, they will host whoever comes out of the Notre Dame Regional. You mentioned the 2 p.m. I think 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. game. So why did Mississippi State choose to play the 2 p.m. game on Friday, John?
Yeah. There's several reasons. The first of which is you're guaranteed to get to take BP on the field, right? And a lot of hitters and even defenders want to see live balls off the bat in the conditions on that day. It kind of keeps them in what they like to do on a daily basis. You got a much better chance, and this happened to us back in 2016, I think. You got a much better chance of not having to play 2 games on Saturday if you're able to win the first game. So you've seen several situations where the second game might get postponed because of afternoon thunderstorms, which roll through the South, this time of year. By getting your game in first, it really kind of guarantees you that if you're able to win the game, that you don't have to play 2 on Saturday. You get to watch game 2. Mm-hmm. If you're playing in game 1, you get to scout game 2. If you're playing in game 2, you're not scouting game 1 because you're preparing your kids to play in the ball game in game 2. You're going through your indoor BP. You're going through your scouting reports. You're going through all this thing while game 1 is going on, and that valuable information, that eyeball stuff that you get to do, you don't get to do if you're playing in game 2 as much. You get a longer rest period. There's no question about that. Win or lose, you get a longer rest period than your opponent does. Mm. And pretty much outside of weather, you know exactly what time your game's going to start, right?
Yeah.
So we know outside of weather exactly what time our game starts. If you're playing game 2, who knows? So it's a little bit of a disadvantage to play in game 2 for those reasons, and maybe the most important of which is you can't guarantee yourself when you're going to start the game or game 2. And let me tell you something I know. 18 to 22-year-olds love routine. And once you take them out of their routine, it can be harmful. And the great Skip Bertman is the first guy to go to this type of format in playing game 1, and I think there's a lot of merit to it.
Okay. John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show in the Modelo guest line, talking postseason regionals and so on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. How do you, the way that Mississippi State played last week, getting run ruled in 2 games? Baseball's weird. That page could have been turned. You could have a team that is not even thinking about that and totally focused on Samford Friday. As a former coach, how do you look at the results from last week?
I look at it like there are a bunch of kids experiencing their first SEC tournament that we're really depending on. That's just how it works, man. I mean, you look at a lot of the teams that are in the field, and I researched a ton of them, over the last 2 weeks. There are a lot of teams of people who you might not say, wow, this name jumps out as a baseball power, but they're older. Indiana State is one of those clubs I looked at. Indiana State, just as one example across the board, I think they had 9 fifth-year seniors on their club, and I think they had 5 redshirt juniors on your club. And when that happens, you're going to have success. When you start counting the number of players for us who are playing in their very first SEC tournament, the number's staggering. In fact, I think of the 9 players we put on the field, I want to say 7 of them had never played an SEC tournament game before. So could I predict that we weren't going to play well? No, I don't think Chris could either. But what I do know about 18 to 22-year-olds, I'll just say this again, when they're experiencing new things over and over and over again, it makes their lives a little bit more difficult. And that's why I think hosting's a big advantage. And I do know. Our coaching staff did a great job, and they used the disappointment of the SEC tournament to get our kids ready for this weekend. I have no doubt about that.
You've mentioned, I think this has happened in Starkville and Oxford. Well, I guess among other places, but there's just so many people at these regionals and supers. Sometimes it's too much for a team, but you would always rather play at home. So how does that factor in as far as postseason,
hey, listen,
ball?
When I played, I think we lost when I got to Mississippi State, I think we lost 3 straight regionals to get to Omaha, and I remember how much pressure all of us put on ourselves because we wanted it so badly for our fan base that was supporting us. I'm telling you, these players put a lot of pressure on themselves because they don't want to disappoint these great fans that we have at Mississippi State. I feel that probably the same way at a place like Oxford and Baton Rouge. It can happen, but again, that's where experience matters. And again, one of the reasons why I think the so-called mid-majors they're gonna make some real noise in this tournament because they're much older. You look at a program like ours, Bo, we lose 2 first-round middle guys. Well, if those same 2 middle guys are at maybe another school and they were projected as 10th or 12th rounders and they would have signed
right
in a normal year, they're right back in the fold. Now they're seniors who have experienced everything, and here Mississippi State is, a 7 seed putting 2 brand new fixtures into the middle infield. So the fact that we're here to me is pretty impressive, but just imagine if a Foscue and a Westberg are running around that middle infield for Mississippi State right now.
John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show. So we'll wrap it up with this. Who needs, in your opinion, who needs to step up and play well this weekend for Mississippi State? This is probably pretty obvious, but who needs to step up and play well for Mississippi State for them to win the regional this weekend?
Yeah, my thing is this. With the environment we have and everything that's at stake, the guys we put on the bump need to throw a ton of strike one. That's what older, experienced kids do. They can throw strike one. You need to cut out all the noise in your mind and just go back to your routine and do what you do best, not what you think is going to ignite the crowd, not what you think. You can't get to those moments where, hey, I'm going to do something that they're never going to forget me for here. I just remember Elijah McNamee, right? Huge home runs. And I remember him saying after the game, hey, I'm trying to hit a line drive in the middle of the field. And then he hits the ball in the ballpark. Great things happen when you try and dominate the average task at hand, but you got to be disciplined to do it, and you got to cut out all the noise. And again, when I played 150 years ago, Bo, we didn't have social media, so
right.
There was not the criticism, there was not the pressure, but you could feel the anticipation of thousands and thousands of people wanting you to be successful. And again, you got to keep that pressure away from you and pretend like there's nobody in the stands.
We'll leave it there. John Cohen, athletic director at Mississippi State, on the Modelo guest line, talking postseason baseball in Starkville. John, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Bo. Yes, sir.
John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. If you missed any of that interview, if you're just joining us within the last couple of minutes, it will be on Apple Podcast, all right, in the next hour or so. And you can search the Out of Bounds show. Apple Podcast, would love for you to search the Out of Bounds show, hit subscribe. And if you missed any of that interview with John Cohen, it will be uploaded within the next hour. Apple Podcast, search the Out of Bounds show, and we would love for you to hit subscribe. Want to welcome you in, say good morning. Hope you had a great weekend. And it's an exciting time in the state of Mississippi as far as college baseball. Here we are again. Ole Miss and MSU hosting. The towns will be on fire starting on Thursday. A lot of people will drive in to Stark Vegas and Oxford on Thursday and then get ready for baseball all weekend with everything on the line. Cannot wait. The show is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Favorites.com to get a quote in 4 minutes or less. Bundle your auto and home insurance. Save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Favorites.com. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line is 601-707-3750. 707-3750. The show is also brought to you by Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kirk Jeffries. They have a new location, Belmead, Flowood. Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kirk Jeffries. New location, Flowood at Belmead. Back in a second.